Well, good morning and welcome to another video. As I mentioned in the first video, I'm back on the road. I'm also on the new machine, which is kind of nice. So I managed to put the new road bike together in very little time. Took me 2 or 3 days. It's probably the lightest bike I've ever built, and I'm quite surprised how light it really turned out. So let's get into the specifications of that, shall we? All right, so this maiden voyage of the new bike is going to take us on a pretty nice training ride, 165 kilometers, more or less. We're currently on a pretty open road and circling around the airport of Cologne. Popular spot because it's predominantly flat, and a lot of people, especially triathletes, like to come here to train. But let's talk about the new road bike. As mentioned in the first video, I have purchased a Winspace SLC3 frame set, which is pretty much the lightest frame set that Winspace has to offer. Comes in at, well, it says unpainted, comes in at slightly under 700 grams for the frame. Then obviously there's also a little weight on the fork and on the seat post. But when I put the frame, just the frame, on the scale, and I have a very accurate scale that I use to check packages and everything. So it's like it's 0.5 milligrams accurate. And it came in at 739 grams, which to me is close enough. You know, there's always going to be tolerances with manufacturing. And then for the group set, this way I went into a new direction for me, actually. Usually I'm like sort of part of the SRAM ecosystem. Or, well, let's put it this way. When it comes to electronic shifting, my only experiences so far have been with SRAM Force and SRAM Force Explorer. Yeah, since I was running one by systems, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, everybody that I know that runs on one by system kind of goes with SRAM. So to me it was like, okay, and I was never disappointed. I like the fact that you can swap the batteries easily, especially when you're on a longer ride and you have a spare battery and you can just, you know, swap them. I think that's great. But for a couple of reasons, this time I actually went with a Shimano group set. 2 reasons. A, the spindle of the crankset. So I've watched one of Hambini's videos on the SLC3 where he gave sort of a final verdict. He kind of went into more details on the bottom bracket area, and since this is a press fit, a BB86, which I managed to press in like without any issues, he says the dub spindle, which has almost 29 millimeters in diameter, is pretty big for a bottom bracket that small or that narrow. He says, sure, if you want to fit a dub spindle in there, you can do that. But with a BB86, the size of the bearings is going to be relatively small, and with higher torque, there's a chance you're going to slash the bearings. I kind of rethought my initial plan to go with a SRAM Force group set. Also, this frame is not UDH compatible, so that was kind of the other thing. It wasn't possible to modify the frame to fit a SRAM force. I went with an Ultegra 2x system, Ultegra Di2, and to be honest, I am super surprised and pretty happy with my decision. Again, for a few reasons. A, one of my preferred retailers had a very good deal on the Ultegra group set. It was just too good to say no to it. Second, as just mentioned, the bottom bracket. In case I accidentally put out a lot of power on a climb or something, I don't want to risk slashing the bearings. And now, after putting the bike together, I have to say it was also very, very easy. It's not to say that fitting a SRAM group set is difficult, but it was pretty straightforward. Okay, so just to round out the list of components, the SLC3 frame set from Winspace, the Shimano Ultegra Di2 group set with a compact crank set. So it's like 50 to 34. I'm new to 2x systems, so I thought it was the safest option to take. Then a very, very light set of wheels from Pyrope. Pyrope is a company out of Germany that makes textile spokes, like super light. And they have kind of chosen a set of rims from Duke racing wheels. The wheel set, without anything attached to it, comes in at just 1,080 grams, which is like insanely light. So then I'm running TPU inner tubes, Continental GP5000, the all-season version of them. So why the all-season version, you say? A couple of reasons. A, they are super puncture resistant. I'm using them for 2 years now. I've never had a puncture with this rubber, so that's one reason. The other reason is if you end up on weird terrain, like for some reason, you know, your route planner didn't recognize a certain section to be like smooth tarmac, but like sort of sandy terrain, not gravel per se, but like, you know, the stuff that people use for their regular bikes, then they can take a lot of abuse. They're a lot more forgiving. All right, 50 kilometers into the ride, and I've taken the opportunity after a nice little climb to take a little break up on here. It's really, really beautiful out here. The weather is pretty nice. Wind is quite strong actually in between, and it's not that sunny, but it doesn't matter. As long as it doesn't rain, I'm totally fine. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk a little bit in detail and with like some visuals of the new bike. So here she is in all its beauty, the Winspace SLC3 in the color super light black. As mentioned before, frame alone is 739 grams, and the total build, so that means the frame, the handlebars, and even the GPS unit, so that's the Wahoo Element Roam version 2, the bottle cages and the pedals, this whole thing came in at 6.85 kilos, which is pretty light. And I think it's probably due to the wheel set, because those textile spokes from Pyrope, they definitely make a huge difference. So 6.85, and I notice how fast this thing goes uphill. It's just, in comparison to my titanium bike, it's a day and night difference. Unbelievable. And also on the straight. So I feel like in terms of aerodynamics, I mean, obviously you can't compare this to a pure and proper aero bike, but it is definitely faster than most of the other road bikes I've ridden so far. So chapeau to Winspace, they did a great job. In case you were asking
That's a 11 to 34 cassette. That's a 50 34 chain rings on the crankset, and it's 170 mil crank arms. And yeah, really like this. Oh, one thing that that I should mention is the rear brake. You can only fit a 140 mil rear brake in there. 160 is not going to fit, so it's not. It's set up for 160. I'm not sure if you can put an adapter somewhere to change that, but yeah, not sure. So that's a 140. You need to keep that in mind. And yeah, off we go. Another 110 kilometers to go.
I have to say that I absolutely love how this thing rides. It's just a real pleasure. A lot of people who have reviewed this bike or the frame, well, they put together the bike and then like reviewed their ride experience. They've said that they've experienced a, like, in quotes, compliant ride. So it's like a more of a comfortable ride, not like super stiff. And I have to say, I agree. It's definitely very forgiving, even if the road is like a little bit rougher. So that's definitely a great thing. But when it comes to stiffness, I have to say that as soon as you like put power into the pedals, when you're going up a climb or when you're pushing it a little bit heavier on the flat, the bike reacts immediately. So I don't feel that there's like some sort of I don't know, slack in the response of the bike. So yeah, well done. Overall, it's just very smooth, and I have to say, I'm starting to become a fan of the Ultegra or like the Di2 system. Like changing gears is like so crisp and fast, unbelievable. So one important aspect to talk about, at least for me, because I was very unlucky with that sort of topic in the past, is geometry. When I showed you the bike, I said that this is somewhere between, you know, racy and endurance. And that obviously depends on how you set it up. You might have noticed that I've used all the spacers that came with the frame set, and that means I've used the maximum of 40 millimeters in spacers that you can use. I did that because I wanted a sort of a relaxed geometry, more like with an upright position. I can always position my body in a different, in a different manner in order to achieve more aero-ness, if that's even a word. Anyhow, and it definitely makes a difference if your handlebar is 4 centimeters lower or higher. And since this is my maiden voyage on the bike, I think, I'm going to see how I feel about it after the ride, and then I'll decide if 4 centimeters of spacers is too much or not. The other important aspect in terms of like sizing always seems to be a bit tricky with some of these Eastern frames. And just to give you an example, the recommended frame size for my height, which is 180 on 180 centimeters, and I have a leg inseam of 82 centimeters. So the recommended size, frame size, is size M. In the past, with other manufacturers, I've chosen size M. It was just too large for me. I felt like very, very stretched and not comfortable at all. So, okay, cleaning up the neighborhood. So over time I found out that as long as the top tube length is around 520 millimeters or 52 centimeters, in general I'm fine. I can adjust everything around that. So in order to not get into like a bad surprise, the size for this frame is size S, and so far I'm not regretting that choice. All right, so we're approaching the longest climb of this route, 5.4 centimeters. That will be something. 5.4 kilometers in length, average gradient 4%. So not too terrible. There are a few like rougher sections in there though. I'll be able to manage with this super light bike. Well, this just turned into a proper coffee ride. I knew that I was going to pass through a certain town, but I didn't know I was going to pass exactly through the main street, which is nice because there's this really, really nice cafe. They have good coffee, and the cakes and everything. Amazing. ride. 15 kilometers to go. I'm gonna be back home, and then I'm going to slip into my recovery boots and give you, well, some insights into this very first ride with the SLC3. See you in a bit. Back at the house, I have my recovery boots strapped on, so my legs don't feel like shit tomorrow or later. These things are an absolute game changer when it comes to that. But let's talk about my first ride experience with the SLC3. In terms of ride feeling, I would give this a 9 out of 10. It's super comfortable. It's and in comparison to other carbon fiber bikes I've been ridden in the past, they were kind of harsh, especially over the longer distances. And I just did a route that had a total of 168 kilometers, and I didn't feel any discomfort at any time, even with rougher roads. So 9 out of 10 in terms of ride feel. In terms of how the geometry fits the rider, or like let's put it this way. In terms of how the recommendation, the frame size recommendation actually matches, I don't know. It's more like a 6 out of 10 for me, especially because I was recommended to take a size M frame, and I knew when I saw the top tube length being 54 centimeters that's never going to work for me. I've had bikes with that sort of geometry in the past, and they just didn't work. I didn't feel comfortable on them, and I ended up getting rid of them and getting a new bike. Again, I'm a 180 centimeters with an 82 centimeter inseam, and if you want some sort of like more upright position, something that's like gonna help you, especially over the longer distances, I definitely recommend getting a size S, and then, you know, max out the amount of spacers that you can put on top. Unless, of course, you're one of those guys who is like, no, you know, spacers are an absolute, you know, terrible visual aspect of a road bike. Well, then, you know, take them all off. But then, obviously, you'll end up with a very, very slammed front end, which is going to result in, you know, being more fatigued over the longer distances. Which doesn't matter if you just, you know, ride 60, 70 kilometers, I suppose. But yeah, in terms of how easy it was to actually assemble the bike, I would give this an 8 out of 10 for a few reasons. It would be great if this comes with a manual, especially for people who intend to build their like first bike. That was the case for me. I mean, I've done it in the past with the help of a friend, but this time I was fully on my own. And it would be great if there's like at least some guidance, because let's be honest, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to buy the frame, or not this Winspace frame, but maybe another, maybe the T1550 or something. And there are going to be a lot of guys who are going to do this on their own. I've recently heard that the B2B side of their business is actually bigger than the direct to consumer. But nonetheless, it would be great if there's like some kind of, you know, instruction, not a full manual, but at least a few instructions. Especially when it comes to, you know, torque values for the different parts, because on some parts you'll find them, on others you don't. So that would be definitely a thing to think about. One thing I would definitely recommend is get the Winspace 0SL handlebar, because with the headset spacers and then integrated cables through the bar, this was like probably the most, like the easiest part to assemble. And I'm not talking about like fiddling the cables through the handlebar,
that's always kind of a hassle, but you know, you want things to look clean, so you know, you just you just deal with it. But like in terms of how clean it looks and how well it assembles, I'll definitely recommend getting the Winspace handlebar. Apart from the fact that it feels very ergonomic, and it's obviously made to fit like the angle. So I think it comes with a -7-degree angle. So that obviously fits the corresponding angle of the fork. So to me, overall score for the Winspace SLC3 would be a solid 9 out of 10, simply because it rides very smooth, but then also it reacts very, very fast. Like if you put power into the pedals, that power definitely, you know, hits the road. It definitely gets there. So there's enough stiffness in that frame in order to, you know, confidently push into the pedals, you know, to move forward, whether it's on the flat or it's on climbs. The route that I just did, I was really surprised. I've never had an average speed of like 29 kilometers per hour on a 168 kilometer ride, and that is obviously more easy because due to the weight, you're getting up the climbs faster, and since the frame has some aerodynamic aspects to it, it obviously is also faster on the flat. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any questions. Whatever it is, just put it in the comments. And again, since this channel is just starting and it's very young and it's very you know, subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.